Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video I'll be discussing my thoughts on episode 3 of the anime series Brynhildr in the Darkness. And this was quite the compelling episode, I have to say, at the very least. It's almost hard to believe that we're only 3 episodes in with everything that was going on in it. In any case, as we open this episode, we find out that Kuroha has been absent from school on and off for several days now. At one point she actually did come in, all bandaged up and sickly looking, trying to pass it off as all being down to a simple cold, somewhat comedically I might add. But Ryota rightly suspects that there's a lot more going on and follows her back to hers and Kana's hideout once again, stumbling onto the fact that Kuroha is actually covered in blood and bleeding out, to both his and Kana's horror. Kuroha goes on to explain that, as witches go, they need to continue taking these pills they call death suppressants because they'll essentially begin bleeding out and melting away within so many hours if they don't, leading to their eventual deaths. And Kuroha has been stubbornly holding off her consumption of these pills so as to finally go and see the ocean, per their class trip that's shortly up and coming, which Ryota feels semi-responsible for as he's the one who mentioned it to her. So it was actually a pleasant surprise that it was really down to him basically IDing what those medications were, how to go about finding them and such, because he's got this photographic memory, his special power, as he puts it, to coincide with the powers these witches wield, after the accidental travesty of a fire basically destroying the last of their pills when Kuroha was trying to boil some water. And after a support call to fellow witch and Geek Squad techie, I guess, Kazumi, to ask her with some help with the pharmaceutical company's security that they're going to have to break into, they all make plans to go in and steal some more of the life-preserving pills. And they're going to do so in spite of Kana's cries of horror that she's envisioned another death, this time Kuroha. She is going to die by being cut in half, as it were, which they correctly surmise would come at the hands of another, in this case lab-influenced and overly malicious witch by the name of Sayori, who reminded me, I have to admit, when we get the first look at her, of a sort of badass fighter-style Tomoko Kuroki with her hairdo. In order to secure Kazumi's help, though, she's expecting payment in the form of these death-suppressant pills. And we're surprisingly finding out that, although it's assumed she has a solid stock of them all her own, because, of course, Ryota wants her to try to share some of these pills with Kuroha and Kana, it turns out she, too, is entirely run out of them. So time is essentially of the essence for all 3 of these girls. Kuroha and Ryota effectively hop a train to hit up this pharmaceutical company, during which we find out that Kuroha is actually capable of writing to some degree, and is doing so well enough to transcribe a letter she demands Ryota read after they've entered the facility. He does, and immediately finds out she's on a suicide run. She's going to go and confront Sayori to her face in the hopes of buying some time for him to steal the pills they need and escape without her, so as to issue her life away in a sort of selfless pursuit of saving Kana's and Kazumi's lives. But expectedly, Ryota won't have it and sticks to the original plan of attacking Sayori from behind to take down the machine all of these witches have embedded in their necks, which we actually finally find out is called a harness. We also find out a little bit about their form and function, and apparently that overtaxing the use of them with magic creates a sort of depletion of at least Kuroha's memories. This comes very poignantly into play when Kuroha has been cornered by Sayori, just as Ryota comes onto the scene, and he notices by a bit of exposed side boob on Kuroha's part that the little spell of trinary moles he'd seen on his supposedly dead childhood friend Kuroneko are actually well and truly there on Kuroha. They've just moved slightly as she's grown up and filled out her teenage clothes a bit, all of which makes him call back to the fact that she doesn't seem to know or remember him when they first meet. Yet does she cryptically have moments where her interests are right in line with those he knew she had as a child when they were friends. I have to admit, I was never convinced that Kuroha was not Kuroneko, and as predictable as the reveal that she was the same person could have been, it didn't take anything away from the delight in seeing Ryota's fully imbued with a newfound sense of determination in realizing this in his attempt to save Kuroha from Sayori, or the shock that came moments later when Sayori seemingly makes Kana's vision come true with the slaughter of Kuroha in one fell swoop. Granted, there's a lot of blood, and we don't actually get to see beyond Sayori entirely to know whether Kuroha was actually disintegrated into a pile of blood and sinew or not. But either way, we end with Ryota standing there seemingly stunned by her death, and just as suddenly determined that all is not lost, that there is another option, which to me is anyone's guess. It threw me for a loop. So yeah, this was a really hell of a riveting episode. I can't wait to see where we're going to be picking up in the next, and yeah, otherwise that'll be pretty much it for me on this. I hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.